Back in February, I talked about a speech that Donald Trump gave at the National Prayer Breakfast in which he promised to destroy the Johnson Amendment, the piece of legislation that prevents tax-exempt organizations from doing any kind of political lobbying. And that, of course, includes churches, which makes it a part of the wall separating church and state. For the most part, the Johnson Amendment has been roundly ignored by the most brazen and asinine church leaders who continue to preach about politics from the pulpit with absolutely no punishment. But destroying it would still be another brick taken out of the wall separating church and state. And so obviously we don't want that to happen. In fact, we would like the opposite. We would like for the federal government to actually start enforcing the Johnson Amendment, especially as it applies to churches, since they seem to be doing most of that political lobbying. Well, last week, Trump actually followed through with his threat, sort of. Like most of the things that Trump promised to do while campaigning, both before and after his inauguration, since the campaigning has never actually stopped, he can't actually just sign away an amendment without congressional or court approval. But hey, that won't stop Trump from trying. And so on the same day that the House voted to take away health care from millions of Americans, Trump proudly scrawled his name on an executive order that asks the Treasury Department to refrain from punishing any church that engages in political activity. First of all, he's asking the Treasury to do basically the thing that they have always done. In the entire history of the Johnson Amendment, only one church has ever actually been punished by the IRS, and that was for taking out a full-page attack ad against Bill Clinton in the newspaper. They might as well have placed an ad saying, "We're breaking the law, please punish us as you see fit." Second of all, he can't do that. Again, that's for Congress and the courts to decide. So the executive order is basically meaningless. You can tell based on the fact that even the religious right is pissed off that it didn't give them the right to discriminate against women and gay people like Trump had originally wanted. And even the ACLU doesn't think it's worth suing over. That said, it is an obvious violation of separation of church and state. As I pointed out in my last video on the subject, the Johnson Amendment doesn't just apply to churches. It applies to all tax-exempt nonprofits. Yet, Trump's executive order only calls for a lack of enforcement relating to religious institutions, which gives them benefits not afforded to secular charities. That's why I'm actually glad that the Freedom from Religion Foundation is suing over the order. It may be purely symbolic, but symbols mean something, and suing in response is also an important symbol. It's a symbol that says, hey, we're watching, and we don't like what Trump is doing, and we're not going to give him an inch, because we know that then he's going to take a yard. If you're already a card-carrying ACLU member, then you should also consider joining the Freedom from Religion Foundation in order to continue resisting the religious right using Trump as their own personal dancing puppet.